Before we go on to the interview, have you already taken a look at the IPS Academy? The IPS Academy provides online courses from some of the best instructors out there on mental health, personal development, lifestyle, nutrition, mindfulness, improving your life quality, etc. Each course we offer has been made in collaboration with an instructor who has also been a guest here on the IPS Podcast. Have a look to see if there's a course to your liking, read the full course descriptions, and check out the thousands of positive reviews from students who have taken the course by going to theipsproject.com/academy or check the description of this episode to find the link. With that, let's dig into the interview.
Okay, so the first thing I would say, like, hearing bad news is bad. You know, like...
Yeah.
I would not recommend to try, let's say, a positive psychology approach of like, I can see now the positive in it. And, you know, sometimes you get bad news and it's just like, I don't know what word I can use on this podcast, but it's just bad, you know? And that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it means that you care about living, and I think it's okay to be upset, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay. That's what I learned, that I have to live through all these emotions.
This is episode 034 with Dr. Martin Inderbitzin. Welcome everyone to another episode, another journey here on the IPS Podcast. I'm Jellis Vaes, your host and the founder of the IPS Project, the educational platform All Life. Here on the podcast, I chat with people from all walks of life to draw out life lessons that you can use to improve your quality of life. Now, in this episode, I had the pleasure of welcoming a guest who has been on the show twice before. A guest about whom I received many positive comments each time he was on the show. And, well, a guest I myself love talking to. Who is this guest? Well, it's none other than Dr. Martin Inderbitzin, a pancreatic cancer survivor, a neuroscientist, and a triathlete. Now, here's a slightly more extended intro about Martin and about this episode, and I will explain why. In 2000, just after receiving his PhD in neuroscience, Martin got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, an event that, well, as you can imagine, completely turned his life upside down and sent him on a roller coaster journey with many battles to be fought along the way. Because of this experience, Martin founded My Survival Story, a story platform to inspire other cancer patients by sharing the stories of other survivors. If you want to hear the in-depth story of Martin's cancer journey, as well as how he became a triathlete, because he signed up for a triathlon when he was actually still undergoing chemo, then check out the first interview he did on the IPS Podcast, which was episode 11, and you can find it linked up in the description of this episode. Now, Martin is also the founder of the Mindset Academy, an academy that offers online courses where he combines his personal experience of battling cancer and his understanding of neuroscience to help you change your mindset. In episode 26, the second time he appeared on the IPS Podcast, we talked a lot about mindset, pain, and suffering. In that interview, Martin shared also multiple practices he used during his cancer journey, as well as techniques from neuroscience that he also teaches in one of his courses. You can also find that episode linked up in the description of this episode. Now, this episode, and here is why the intro will be a bit more extended, not alone to just give you a background about Martin, but also this interview will be slightly a bit different than the usual interviews I do, as I too will join the interview and participate much more in the conversation. If you wonder why, well, it's because I too have a story to tell about dealing with a chronic and life-threatening illness. For more than 24 years, I've been dealing with a chronic heart disease that led to a cardiac arrest 2 years ago. An event that also, as you probably can imagine, turned my life just upside down. Now, the questions that have been created for this interview are questions about life and death, And these are topics everyone will face in some form at some point in their lives. However, Martin and I just have, we both already had years to ponder these questions of life and death. With that, we have also had our fair share of insights and takeaways that you can use to improve your life and find your own answers and truths on the topics of life and death. As always, you can find any resources mentioned in this episode in the show notes, which can be found in the description of this episode. Martin also recently wrote his first book titled Dare to Live, a collection of condensed insights from his last decade of fighting for his life. Each chapter is filled with his thoughts and practical actions, combining his understanding of neuroscience and his personal experience of battling chronic cancer and surviving pancreatic cancer. The book too can be found in the show notes of this episode. Now, if you can't find them there, you can simply go to theipsproject.com/podcast and search for Martin. Having said all that, I sincerely hope you will find many lessons, insights, and truths about the topic of life and death in this episode with me and Dr. Martin Inderbitzin. Please enjoy. Martin, a warm welcome to the IPS Podcast. It's so good to welcome you once again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure.
So you've been on the podcast now 2 times, and the first time was in episode 11, and the second time was in episode 26, which, for everyone listening, I will also put in the show notes. Each time I received actually countless of positive comments from people telling me how much they actually learned from you and the insights that they got. And I personally also each time walked away with so many lessons, actually. So I'm always very happy to have you on the show again.
Oh, thanks so much. I mean, hearing that is just such a beautiful thing that just fills me with gratitude, you know, like that when you do something or share something or share your story and then somebody else can see something in it or take away something, that's just so wonderful, I think. Yeah.
So the last time that we actually spoke was in 2021, so like 2 years ago. Yeah, and I know that a lot has changed, you know, for you, for me as well. If people just look at us right now, you know, seeing us sitting here talking to each other, we both look pretty normal, you know. You look pretty healthy, I look pretty healthy, like nothing has ever happened to us, right? But then if you know what you've went through, if people have listened to episode 11, where we dig a lot more into like the story, you know, of cancer and everything, you know, that you had to go through and battled with. But if people just look at us now, you would not, you know, you would not say any battles that we fought or went through. And I actually wanted to, since it's been such a long time, I actually wanted to start by asking if you're okay with just giving in sort of a nutshell maybe the start of your journey, but also a most recent update of what has happened from 2021 up until now, for people to know some of those battles that you've gone through. So they will also see, once we get into the questions, where you're coming from, you know, where the lessons that you've learned and the insights that you've gotten, that they're not just that they're actually coming from years of experience in a way.
Sure, I can try. I mean, I'm not sure if I remember exactly where we left 2021, if I'm honest. Like, I remember it as a good talk and very deep. But what I want to pick up, what you said, is it's true that when you look at people like us or other people out there, then on the surface, or I like to say on the front story, it all looks so glossy and or it looks very healthy and no struggle. And then there is the backstory, and the backstory, I think, is often more interesting than the front story. The front story is maybe the one you share on Facebook, and then the backstory is maybe the one you share on a podcast. I don't know. Like, it could be. I don't know how it's for you, but I mean, it's for me maybe tricky to summarize like the steps I went through, because in the past years, I had so many ups and downs in both directions of like amazing things that happened in my life that I could never have dreamt of doing or achieving, and then dramatic stuff that I was like, oh, asking myself if I can actually make it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really this bipolar like timeline going up and down, and it's probably hard to pick up like one concrete milestone. What I would take with me is that like when you're on the top, you can be sure it will not always be there. When you're on the bottom, the same. So this is something that I start memorizing or remembering, like when I have my low points, but also when I have my high points. Like, hey, it's this kind of development, and it helps me actually to go through the stuff. Yes.
So maybe, because you mentioned like the ups and the downs, maybe can you, from maybe 2-3 years ago, what were some of the ups and downs? And that could be sort of the most recent update for people to hear what has happened in your life.
Sure. I would say one of the biggest ups in the past years is that the story and my cancer journey made me really decide what I want to do with my time and what I want to do professionally and how I want to spend my time, and changing my relationship to time and asking myself, is this meaningful to me, or do I want to do something else? And somehow, without having a plan, but more with I like to say with a design thinking approach, like trying stuff out, prototyping, and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Ending up in a position where I can do what I'm doing today, giving talks, giving workshops, helping people. In one way or the other, it's the most beautiful thing that happened in the past years. And this would not have been possible without I had to go through with cancer. Now, on the downside, I would say it is really something that does not only affect your emotions, but also your relationships. Sure. I had a lot of ups and downs there, and I'm now not together anymore with Katrina, like the last time we have talked with, and we are totally in good terms. Actually, we had a coffee yesterday, which was really fun. So it was, but it shows that a journey like this is not just a medical or emotional struggle, but also for you when you're in a relationship or somebody watching you or walking next to you. It's a huge burden, and like juggling all these balls is really something that is not easy. So yeah.
Actually, this was a question that I not yet in the interview sort of planned, you could say, but I am curious now because you mentioned that your relationship ended because of this chronic disease that you're struggling with, right? Or that you have.
I'm not sure if it was the chronic disease,
Oh, okay.
I think relationships, they come together and they break because of different reasons. But what I think is that a chronic disease is like an amplification of what is already in the relationship.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it accelerates what is going on and I don't want to blame like my cancer or my my disease for a relationship to go apart. But it puts you and your relationship in a different context, in a special box, or in an environment that you have to go through, and it can either make you like going really together, or it can really break you apart. And that's not the cause is in this way not directly the illness, but it's just accelerating it. And I and she and we learned a lot out of it. So I mean, today we are much stronger not in an American way, not like, you have to think positive, but we grew out of that.
Yeah.
And we are friends, and we understood that it's not the way we had to go and keep going next to each other. And that's again, like when you're asking the ups and downs, it's the beautiful thing again, that you can learn from this kind of life experiences.
Yeah. But it is it's definitely emotional, like you said. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster, not just for you, but also for the people around us, right? And this is something that I now myself, in the last 2 years since I had my cardiac arrest, and I will also maybe give a little update. Well, a little update for people to know where I'm coming from, because some of the questions that I have, I'm very curious about to know your answer on, but some of them I also want to give my opinion on. And I also want to therefore like share a little bit of where I'm coming from with my opinions. But I definitely also, since my cardiac arrest, my relationship also had many, many ups and downs, because it's upsetting, not for me, but for my girlfriend too, in a lot of ways, right? It creates an uncertainty that is not always easy to live with.
Yeah, I think the uncertainty is one factor in the equation, and she has to watch it from outside. But I think what's also tricky is that the illness puts one of the two of you into the patient seat. I mean, patient in whatever sense you want to call it, but in the seat that needs care, or maybe you have to be careful with, which puts the other person in the caregiver's seat. And so that is an imbalance or an asymmetry. And so what happens if the person who suddenly is like, it's not that I as a patient say like, hey, you have to care for me all the time, but it's automatically because you love each other. So what happens now if the caregiver at one point also needs care, or says, hey, look, it's now too much, or now we have to switch roles? And I think that's the tricky change of dynamics that you're not prepared for, because most of the relationships, they come together before you enter such a drama, and then the drama comes in, then suddenly it changes the dynamic. I don't know how it was for you guys, but I mean, we definitely could observe that dynamic change over the years.
Yeah, it's still a learning process for both of us. But I'm trying, to just live a normal life in the end.
Yeah.
But it's just more the uncertainty, I think, for my girlfriend, that is the hardest thing.
That like the fear of it could come back any moment.
Yeah.
Is that the case in your situation, or how is that like?
So, one second, I'm actually going to close my window because I forgot to close it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no. So, well, let me otherwise just jump into maybe a little bit about, my story in a nutshell of the chronic disease that I kind of struggle with. So when I was 6 years old, you have like these school health check-ins, where they just like, or the medical checks that they do at school, or that's at least what we have in Belgium. And the doctor was like listening to my heart, and she just asked me like, are you nervous? I was like, not really. And then she just asked me a whole bunch of questions like, are you often do you often feel nervous, or do you often feel like a fast heartbeat or something? And I had no clue what she was talking about. And a week later, I was sent to the hospital to do an ECG and an echo. And like immediately it was like, yeah, you got a heart arrhythmia, like an irregular heartbeat. So I have like way too many heartbeats. You have like a normal heart rhythm, which is like up and in a rest. And mine is like just constantly going up. And I was like placed on medication, which I really did not respond good to. Like I always broke down in like episodes of like dizziness and being like completely sweaty, every day. So they placed me off it, but they just like let me do like every year a check-in at the hospital, which that's okay. And then they suggested like, okay, we gotta do something about this because this could like turn into some real problems. So do you know what an ablation is?
Yes.
Yeah. So
when they burn out some tissue with microwaves.
Exactly. Yeah. So they go with a catheter, I think it's called in English, to your heart, and like you said, then they burn because this is an electrical problem with your heart, right? The irregular heartbeat. So they try to look for the spot where it's coming from, and they burn it away. But in my case, it didn't work. Then they tried it again the next day. It didn't work again. And then, years passed. And then they said, like, okay, we really have to do something again. So I think after like 8 years, they tried it again. And then again, it failed. Like, and the reason why it failed was because when I was on the surgery table and they wanted to burn it away, the irregular heartbeats, they were gone. So they disappeared.
Yeah.
So it was like, so it was really weird. Because when I sport, for example, they also disappear. It's just, it's really weird actually. And that kind of leads us up to 2021 when I was like 28. That I had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And it is because of my heart disease, because it's also, a cardiac arrest is also because of an electrical problem, right? A heart attack, people confuse it all the time. Heart attack is a problem more with the blood flow, but you're still conscious. Cardiac arrest, you're just dead. You fall dead, and if there's no one to save you, then you can't do anything.
Because the electrical signal that is just like making the impulse is not working properly anymore, and so the heart just stops.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then last year I had another ablation.
Yeah.
And this time, because they did it only, I wasn't like, how do you call it, under full anesthesia. It was only like partly. And it was normally to be like a 2-hour surgery, but it ended up being like a 5-hour surgery. But they found like the place and they burned. Because the last times they actually didn't do that because they couldn't find it. And they said like, it's gone. And I was like, I actually started crying because this was like I just couldn't believe it actually, that it was like, okay, this is like over now. But then in the night, it actually returned again. So, yeah. But this year, there's another surgery scheduled. And they basically said like, okay, we just got to burn deeper. Because they don't burn all the way too deeply, right? They try to reduce.
Yeah, of course, it's a risky.
Yeah, exactly, right? So they just have to go a bit deeper. But they... they might have found the spot where it's coming from. But, well, let's see, right? Because they were also on the surgery table saying like, it looks also like it's coming from the outside and not from inside. So it might turn up into a whole different surgery, which is more like an open heart surgery to fix this.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to not think about that yet.
Yeah.
And focus more on just this right now. But that's a little bit of, in a nutshell, like my, me dealing with this chronic disease and with death and just having a lot of thoughts and trying to live with it, learned a lot from this about living life, but it's also not been easy,
I can imagine. Yeah. I can imagine.
Because didn't you went through a surgery like last year or 2 years ago?
Last year, yes. Last year. I was thinking, which year do we have? Yes, after my sailing, After my sailing, I had a big surgery. Yeah.
Why?
Because my cancer always comes back in the liver. So,
always.
Yeah, that was the spot that we spotted it so far, yes. So initially it was in the pancreas, but since then it came back like 6, 7, 8 times in the liver, and so that's where we always have surgery. And
wow,
and it's interesting because it comes back, but very small spots and very slow growth, and so it's very interesting. We don't know exactly why, and I mean normally it goes very quick and pretty fast, and in my case it's not like that, and so.
What do you mean with quick and fast?
Happy. Yeah.
What do you mean with quick and fast?
Like normally pancreatic cancer goes like very quick, it spreads, it proliferates very quickly, and then you're just gone.
Right.
And there is very little chemotherapy that works, or just in some cases. And so the options are not the biggest. So surgery, as long as it's localized and possible to have surgery, is really good. And so in my case, this was always possible. And so we had I had many surgeries and just like keeping it at bay. Yeah.
And the surgery, what did they do? Do they also burn it away? Because I also heard that
I had different ablation. I think I had 3 or 4 surgeries where we had ablation, and I had like 4 or 5 big ones where I got opened up all the stuff. Like, and I can slowly feel that with my breathing, you know, with my whole scar tissue, that it affects me when I do sports. So
in which way?
I feel like I'm shorter in breathing, and you know, like it's of course like under the skin, everything is very. I mean, last time it took them like 3 hours just to get away all the scar tissue until they could start.
Wow!
So it took them 3 hours to deliberate the liver from all the scar tissue, and then they could start with the surgery.
Whoa.
So it's kind of, I don't want to know how it looks inside. So. Yeah, so I'm happy that they still managed to do that. So it's really, yes. So this way, yes, I feel a change of my body, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these surgeries do take a toll on your body, right? It's especially like you, if you have to, if you had to do many of them. Yeah. It's not like you just, you know, that nothing happened. Like you're just completely like new again. No, there's a cost to everything, right?
Yes. But on the other side, it's good that we can have such kind of interventions, of course, that we have access to this kind of technology. And so, without it, I will not be alive.
Same.
Yeah.
Right. So the last surgery was last year for you. Yeah. So some of the questions that I actually have for you, Martin, or the questions that I have in a way for both of us, they're questions, you know, for listeners that, in a way, they're sort of designed in a way that everyone can use, not just people with a chronic illness or, you know, chronic disease. Because in a way, what you and me have experienced and go through, in a way, everyone does, right? Like, everyone questions, you know, life and death. Everyone goes through tough times and deals with painful situations. It's just that you, for example, it's like more amplified if you have a chronic disease, right? Or so therefore, for people listening, you can use the lessons for your personal situation also. And the first question actually that I want to dig into is, so when I shared a bit about my story, you know, since my cardiac arrest, what I've really been shown, like I had this insight in a way when I lost my dad when I was like very young, but the mortality of my own life has been really shown to me now since in the last 2 years, like just how I knew that it could happen to other people and in a way that it could happen to me as well, but now it happened to me. So just knowing like, yes, this really happens to people. And what I've been, in a way, a little bit struggling with and where I'm really curious about just to learn about from you or just to hear your thoughts on is, you hear often people saying like, oh, you got to live in the now, you got to live in the moment. And that's true for everyone, right? But at the same time, you also want to work on the future. And how do you balance this out? Have you learned a way to balance out living in the now and working towards the future on projects, on the Mindset Academy, on my survival story or other things? How do you do this? Do you have any?
It's a very interesting question, and I can feel that it comes from you because you have been in the same conflict.
Yeah.
And as long as you have not I mean, you said you understood that you have to die one day, but I think you underfelt, you felt, that you're going to die one day. It's a feeling, a knowledge in feeling, which is not the same as knowing. And I think that's what differentiates people who had to go through something like you and me from people who are reading a book from, let's say, you or from me, It's once you feel it, once you nearly hit the wall, you have another kind of epiphany on the emotional level. And then it's true, you come in this conflict. And it's something that I had to learn and still learning with since now nearly 10 years. Because, of course, in the beginning, I was like, okay, let's take all my savings and let's do this project and let's go once around the world. And I mean, I don't know if I'm going to survive 6 months. Let's do it. I literally was taking out all my retirement plan and saying like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a company or a foundation and put it in there. And then you come home and you're broke and you're still alive. And then you're like, okay, maybe it's like, what should I do now? Yeah. And so I'm still, I would answer your question like this. I don't have a long-term tactical plan, like saying, this is the milestones I'm going to achieve. But I have big dreams and big visions. So if I compare it to sailing, which helps me a lot to put this kind of thoughts into a picture, is I envision an island or a dream destination where I want to go with my boat. Mm-hmm. And so I see that very clearly, where like this is my long-term visualization. But I know that I'm on the boat and I only can live and act and interact with life on the boat. And so in the end, it actually doesn't matter if I reach the island or if I just on the way to this island, because I need the island as a navigational compass. So I know, okay, in which direction should I sail? Yeah. But I know that any time there can be a thunder or whatever, and then the journey's over. And so it doesn't destroy my happiness or my acting on the boat. And so that's how I approach my life, but also my business. I have a big vision for what I want to achieve, but I try to stay on the moment and on the boat by being on the journey. Yes.
Yeah, I would say that is also my approach to this.
Yeah, how do you do it? Like, how do you solve that problem?
Well, to really be in love with the journey and not the destination, to say it very, and that's actually what you kind of said too, right? And I really question each time, does this feel good? Yeah. Even if it's a long-term plan, it has to feel good. It has to be. What? It does.
Does it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the projects that I work on, like the IPS projects, they're so meaningful to me. I have so much love for it. I enjoy working on it every day. Mm-hmm. And as long that is true, it's worth proceeding, it's worth continuing to build this further. And that is a bit
I was asking because I think when you said as long as it is meaningful to you, then you keep on working on it. But that probably also includes that you're going to do things that you don't like and things that feel like, And I think that's helps me more to navigate. I try to navigate according to meaning and not according to pleasure, because sometimes when you say it has to feel good, I feel like, this is just, if it just has to feel good, I would watch the whole day Netflix and eat pizza, like that's not bringing me to my island. I like what you said, like as long as there is meaning, then you are able to keep going.
Yeah. It's not about like pleasure. It's truly meaning. That's honestly just the words, and that's really like what Viktor Frankl with like man's search for meaning. But it's so true, and especially if you go through something horrible, meaning is truly the thing that will drive you through the darkness. Yeah. And things have to feel meaningful to me for me to continue doing it. And that can be long term. That's fine.
Totally. And I think meaning is very interesting because once you select what is meaningful to you, you can, this is kind of a fast forward process, and then you can like step back and ask yourself, okay, what kind of person do I have to become in order to achieve this meaningful goal? And what kind of character, what kind of actions, what kind of ethics or habits or values do I have to incorporate in order to achieve that meaningful goal? Rather than saying, I want to become a better human. I think that's much harder. Just like okay, I have to be a good person. Yeah, but why? And what does that mean? But if you know why, then I think it's easier. At least for me, it is easier somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I would say, if people like want to create like their own company or want to be self-employed, you know, I personally always am like, yeah, what is meaningful to you? You know, what do you care about? Because personally, that's the approach that I always have taken. That's that will allow you to succeed more because you want to continue working on it. You want to take the hard things with it more easily than if you just focus on, oh yeah, where can be the most money be found? And many people take that route as well and have a lot of success with that too, which is of course fine, but that is very empty for me. And it's just really about, and especially if you had these moments of the fragility, like of seeing that your life can just quickly pass by, it becomes so much more important to take the path of meaning.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, because at the end of life, you will remember what kind of meaningful projects you did, and not like, I don't know, what kind of clothes you bought, or I mean, don't get me wrong, I also like a beautiful shirt or whatever. Of course. It's nice, it feels nice. That's not the point. We should not be too harsh on ourselves.
You can appreciate quality.
Yes, totally. It's beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Meaning is very interesting.
Do you know, because what you said at like, we both have had this insight in that life can end, you know, and we truly know it. But many people can read a book and are like, yeah, okay, life can end, and sort of grasp that. But have you, I don't know, in any keynotes that you have given or any blog posts that you've wrote or just thoughts, have you ever thought about like how you could truly make people realize the fragility of their own life? And I have no idea, by the way, about it.
I think the strongest stimulus that you can have is life by itself. Like, you lose your father, you have an illness, whatever. So I think that's the strongest wake-up experience, and I don't think that you can replicate that with a keynote or with a video or with a post. But I believe if I manage to transmit in a human, in a authentic way what I went through, in a way that makes people emotional, I think it has to go through the emotional channel. I always see in my audience when I see like the first like wet eyes, like then I'm like, okay, now I'm on something. And it's most often it's also when I get a bit emotional, you know? And that's a spot where, as long as you as a speaker are confident and not like too much self-confident, but calm to go into this emotional space, the audience will come with you. If you become insecure there, then it's going to be uncomfortable for the audience. But if you are like, hey, I'm now emotional and it's really okay, so let's keep on walking, they will come with you. And then I think there happens stuff like clicks and ticks, and people connected to their own story, and I don't know what happens in this moment, but I think my challenge or task as somebody trying is to take the people by the hand and say, okay, let's go into the cave now. Let's see what we can find. And normalizing, or not normalizing, but destigmatizing that, like when it becomes emotional, I think that's something that is very important, that okay, it's getting emotional, so let's keep on walking. It's emotions, yes, it's life, it's like being human, so let's see what does it want to tell us, and be open to it and not judgmental. But it takes some practice, many years, probably from your own story yourself.
And for people listening, like, you are a great public speaker, actually. Like, your TEDx talk, I will also put it in the show notes for everyone. I think it's been a while since you've done that one, right? But I think it's, when the first time that I watched it definitely did something for me. Like, it definitely made me feel many things.
It's interesting, and I still get comments on this talk. It seems like people still watching it, and then every year I try to write a comment, because people ask, like, what happened to this guy? And like, no, I'm still alive. Like,
right.
Yes. I mean, another thing that just comes to my mind, asking yourself, how can we replicate such an event or experience, or make people realize it, not just on a cognitive level or more an emotional level? I'm now working with some friends here on a project where we want to do a mindset show, but like a 360, mapping show, not just like that I'm on stage and give a PowerPoint presentation, but they do a lot of light mapping and, make interactive animations on the walls of buildings and rooms. And we try to do something that is more immersive. And let's see if we can, like, I'm always curious and like how we can push the border of, like, okay, what happens if we put people in such a room and we let them experience something? Can we trigger even more, like in a safe way? Of course, you don't want it gets traumatic, but it's interesting to play around with it.
Oh, that sounds cool, actually.
It
reminds me a bit of the Screen X in the cinemas that you can go do and watch. Like, it's like almost a very immersive view sometimes that you get there.
Yes. It's interesting. I like it a lot.
You wrote an Instagram post. Well, you wrote many, but you wrote one which was from your keynote you gave, and there was something very profoundly that you wrote in it that I want to share with everyone, because I think everyone should hear it. If you don't invest in your wellness, you will have to invest in your illness. I've shared that with many people, actually, close friends, people that I care about. And for everyone, when I shared that, something clicked. Something was like, yes, this is very true. And it did the same for me, actually, as well. Could you expand a bit more on that sentence? Like, when did it, like, came to you or something?
I think the concept came to me many years ago when I trained for my first triathlon after my chemo. And I remember very well, I was in Italy and we were sailing. It was the first time I went sailing, but we were on land and I went for a run. And I think it was my first 5K or so. And I felt so alive that I had tears in my eyes, like, whoa, I can run again.
Wow.
And so the concept of, like, okay, your health, your wellness, your health is so precious. It becomes so more aware once it is at risk. And the problem with it is, once you have it back, you forget about it. Once you're healthy, you're like, I mean, me included, like now it was Christmas and, you eat too much sweets and then you drink a little bit of alcohol or a bit too much. And, it's like it's enjoying and everything. And you forget about what you're doing to your body. And I also write those posts to remind myself, because I'm also human. I'm also like, somebody who has like, okay, I have to go out again, and I know if I do it, it makes me feel good, and it is doing good something for my body. But the brain is the brain is funny, you know. The brain just goes quickly on the instant gratification, and it's a matter of if you can install in your life a system and habits that makes it easier for your brain to not, like, you have to trick your brain into it. I think if you just listen all the time to your brain, you're gonna live a very unhealthy lifestyle. And like investing in your wellness is kind of an investment in the future, and that's why it's so hard for the brain to do, because the brain wants just now Netflix and chocolate cake. And so it's just a reminder also for myself, like, hey, wait, like, what is my, and here we're coming back to the long-term vision. When I see my island of the boat, you know, where I want to go, I want to survive, I want to have a healthy body, and so I try to invest more in my wellness than in my illness.
Yeah, that's why it's sometimes, like, besides of course that, like, cigarettes are very addictive, but people struggle with it a lot, right? To stop with it, because they don't really see, like, oh, well, what does it matter? You know, I'm still fine right now.
And, you know, cigarettes are interesting because, cigarettes in our society, they are very clearly tagged as like, okay, that's not good. And if you smoke yourself, you sometimes feel bad, or, you know, it's like you like, it's a very clear categorization. And when you stop smoking, whole society is like, oh wow, great, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
Now when it comes to alcohol, it's very different.
That's true.
Like, alcohol is like, it's very interesting, because I don't drink so much alcohol anymore. Like, for many time I don't drink at all, but I love a good beer. I love Craftman's beer. I love champagne. You know, I'm not like a monk. But often I'm on events, I'm speaking, and after that there is like reception, whatever, I don't drink.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting what happens. Like, people look at you and like, and say, no, I don't drink. And then the first reaction is like, okay, what is wrong with him?
Yes.
You know, when you stop smoking, everybody's like, great, you are a great, well achieved. And if you stop drinking, people think you have a problem with drinking, but it's the contrary. You don't have a problem, so you don't have to drink.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting when I talk with my doctors. Like, I'm not an advocate for like not drinking alcohol. It's just I pick up the topic because I think it's an interesting example of how context is shaping your behavior. What I said before with make it easy for your brain, that of course if a society has one kind of belief system about anything that can be alcohol or anything else, it's much harder for you as an individual to really clearly ask yourself, wait, is this now an investment in my illness or into my wellness? You know, because you're like getting the pressure from outside, and it just shows like how quickly we are influenced.
Yeah, you're right with the alcohol part. It's super interesting. With cigarettes, it's definitely very clearly shown, like, yeah, you can get cancer from it, and like the horrifying things that will or can happen, which are all true. So it's really good, you know, that's been shown. But with alcohol, it's not shown at all. Like the horrific things that can happen also with alcohol. And I actually did here on the podcast an episode about alcohol with This Naked Mind. It's a book. And it's a very, very famous book, actually, for people to stop drinking. And I talked with Scott Pinyard, who is one of the coaches there. And I also actually, I might still drink sometimes a beer, but I have almost completely stopped drinking because I truly tried looking into how bad it is, actually. And it is honestly... really, it's not good. It's really bad. If you even drink one beer and you would track your sleep is terrible. It's just terrible. And it's with wine or anything, right? Alcohol, it's terrible. And
I observed that I'm not 20 anymore, you know, I'm 42. So I see like when I drink, I sleep very bad. And when I don't drink alcohol for 1 or 2 weeks, oh my God, I feel so much fresher, and I can work and train and think clearly, and it's a big change. So for me, it's really a trial and error. Again, the design thinking approach to your life, like prototyping, and then just see what happens when you change a factor. And for me, it was just obvious that I feel much better without it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually also wanted to ask along, by when I said that sentence or that quote that you wrote, what would be good investments that listeners could take into their wellness? And I know there are the very obvious ones, like what we said, like, stop smoking and alcohol and sport more.
Yeah.
But are there maybe some other ones that are maybe less, I don't know, obvious, or ones that you have realized that are really important things that you've invested in that you could share?
I think you're right. I think people, they jump on the obvious one. They think they have to become a runner or something like this. And I don't believe that. I think investing in your wellness starts with setting clear borders at work. Like, don't work until 8, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I completely changed the way I work since my illness, because I know stress is number one enemy for my immune system, and if I'm stressed, I'm risking my life, honestly, because if my immune system is not good, then the cancer can spread everywhere. So I have a very clear understanding why I don't want to have stress. It's not because I'm lazy or because I'm not ambitious. I'm very ambitious, but I want to achieve that in a non-stressful way. And so asking yourself, okay, how can I reduce stress? I think is the first step. Like, how can I go to bed earlier? But this is all the tactical stuff, I think what is more interesting is to ask yourself, why do you want to invest in your wellness? Is it for your kids? Is it for your future? Is it for your, I don't know, the big goal that you have? And I think that should be the driving force for the lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And then it's about practical stuff. I'm a big fan of make it easy and small for the start. Ask yourself, if you hate running, don't go for a run, go dancing. Be creative what you can do. Go walking. If you like podcasts, why don't take a podcast and walk home from work? I mean, if you listen in the US, maybe that's not possible, but in Europe, the infrastructure is different. People work closer, or it's not like the people who get very old, like in the blue zones. These are not ultramarathon runners. They actually drink alcohol, like in Sardinia. The old people, but they walk a lot. And they have no stress, and they drink 1 glass of wine a day, and that's good. So I think it's not about when it comes to this wellness and health thing that we have to be like this, let's say, like Instagram influencers. It's about in a fitness world. It's more about common sense. Like, okay, our body is made for walking and for standing and for it's not made for hanging 8 hours in an email program. So that's definitely not.
But we do that a lot, though.
Yes, we do it a lot. Too much, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like a modern day problem, actually. A very big one, actually. I actually would also like to add 2 things, and one you were actually talking about, and sporting, super important. But like you said, a lot of people think about running, but I don't like running. It's fine, don't do it then. But I climb a lot, and for me, it's not even a sport. It's like, it's fun, but it is a sport. So, and then you said like dancing, right? Find something that is just fun. And as a byproduct, you will also get in shape and you will move.
Yes.
But something that is fun, and check through the options. There's way more sports actually than you probably think of right now that you could do.
And maybe you can do it with a friend, or be creative.
Exactly.
In the end, it's about spending time outside and moving your body in some kind of way.
Yes.
And incorporate that in one way or the other, I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah. I like that with what you say about climbing, that it's not a sport, it's fun. It's probably meditation for you or something taking off your mind. So yeah,
it's cool sports.
Yeah.
And actually the other thing that I've realized in these last 2 years, and I don't know how when I share it to people that they will immediately do it, because I also think it's more a thing that you will do when something has happened, but I still like to share it. I've truly seen the importance of having a good health circle of medical professionals. And I mean, like I, for example, have 2 cardiologists. I actually added another one who has more of another approach on lifestyle than the one that I see in the hospital, who is more approaching like medication and like surgeries, which are both really good insights. And then I also added like a doctor who works really on on your blood work and really does a deep dive into that and like gives supplements based on your needs on that. And actually this year I want to add like a psychologist to it, to go every three months, for example, to a psychologist who is specialized in dealing, people with a chronic disease. And I really have seen like the importance of just, not that I need to use them all the time, but just knowing that I can make an appointment, that I have that circle of medical professionals that I can go to is really helpful for me right now when I deal with this. But I think for many people, many people don't do, test their blood work or work with a doctor every 6 months, for example, that really focuses on giving correct supplements. Like that is that's the quote that you said. Like that's an investment in your wellness already. So you don't have to invest in your illness.
Yes.
And I truly saw the importance actually this year of really having a good circle of medical professionals.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say. Like when you compare that with, let's say, a tennis player, if you want to play in the top league, you have a big team.
Yeah.
And you have for everything, you have like a specialist. And if you say, look, I have a huge challenge medically, so does it make sense that I just have like my house doctor that is in my village and like does cover everything? Or wouldn't it be better to talk to some specialists that have like only that special case that I am struggling with, and they have so much more experience? So I like that approach that you're following totally, yeah.
Yeah. Since my cardiac arrest, I had to deal actually a lot with hearing bad news, and I'm pretty sure that's something that you're quite familiar with. Each time that I go to the hospital, it's like, oh yeah, this medication doesn't work, so we got to try this one. I've been on like 5 different medications, from a beta blocker to a ACE inhibitor to a calcium channel blocker to something very different that I'm on right now. From the surgery that doesn't work, from other things that they noticed, like, this might be another cardiac arrest almost. Like, yeah, I had to deal a lot with hearing bad news, and can be quite upsetting. It doesn't, when I return from the hospital, it's not like I am not influenced by hearing that news. Everyone has been telling me though to keep, hope. And it's not like I don't do that. I keep hope, as long as there are options, there's hope. But still, it's not easy to deal with this. How have you learned to deal with hearing bad news? Is there an approach to this? And as I said in the beginning, everyone will hear bad news in their life at some point. What approach do you use, if any?
Okay, so the first thing I would say, like, hearing bad news is bad. I would not recommend to try, let's say, a positive psychology approach of like, I can see now the positive in it. And, sometimes you get bad news and it's just like, I mean, I don't know what word I can use on this podcast, but it's just bad, you know? And so and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it means that you care about living, and I think it's okay to be upset, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay. That's what I learned, that I have to live through all these emotions, and maybe I don't have to do that publicly, but I want to live through them in my timeline that I need. And then once I have processed, I can calm down and then see, okay, what can we do and what is the plan? But I allow myself to let the bad news be bad. And in the same way that when I have good news, I open a bottle of champagne and it's the same. It would not be honest if I would not be affected. But what I changed...
Thank you, actually. Sorry to interrupt, but thank you for saying that. Because that's something that I feel people just don't understand often when they don't have to deal with something like serious, or even with a small thing. People try to be too positive, and it's actually very lonely when people do that. For the person trying to say something, right? Because you're not connecting. You're not trying to listen to what they're saying.
If you are somebody listening and you're like not directly affected, there is at the beginning of a bad news is just a period where you don't have to give advice, just ask the other person, how do you feel? Then listen what they say, and then say, I can imagine that this feels really shit. Like, don't try to jump directly into solutions, because maybe the other person is not there yet. So I think we should really allow ourselves to go through this emotional timeline, because emotions unfold in a timeline, and if you interrupt it, then you're just gonna cover it under the surface, but it still somewhere needs to be processed. So that's the first thing I would say. And the second thing that I changed my approach, because you mentioned before, you try to keep hope, but it's really hard.
It can be hard.
It can be hard, I know, yes, because there is a problem with hope. Hope is conditional. You hope that something happens, and if that doesn't happen, you get disappointed, and that always puts you in a dependency of the outcome.
Interesting.
And so what I did is I try. It's not. I don't say it's easy, but I try to replace hope with trust. So rather than hoping, I want to learn to trust that it will be fine, but also to trust that I will be fine no matter what, Then I decouple myself from the outside circumstances, because I don't have to hope that X, Y, Z happens. I can say, okay, I learn to trust that no matter what, I can go with it. And even if it means that I have to take my head and leave Earth, and die, I can trust that this process is something that will be my last adventure, and I will be able to do. And it's, in my experience, and I mean, you have to play around with it yourself, but in my experience, it's very powerful and deliberating, because I'm not dependent anymore on outside circumstances. Of course, I still hope when I walk into the office that the doctor gives me good news, but then when the bad news comes, I can say, okay, let's just trust that we're gonna have it, like we're gonna get that.
Is it a way of like surrendering to the moment?
Yes, and I would say it's the way of acceptance, and acceptance is not surrender. That's also a lot what people get wrong. Like, if you accept something, it's actually not surrendering. It's the contrary. Accepting is looking into like what is, into the face, and say, okay, I accept it. And it's an empowering action. And surrender is actually not accepting. Surrender is getting like, okay, I fight or giving up, or I walk away. And accepting is not walking away. So it's for me personally, it's a very empowering like action. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you handle it. I mean, or how you do it, but
what I at the moment, because the cardiac arrest could happen anytime again. That's why I have an ICD in me to give me a shock if it would happen, but that doesn't mean that
for somebody that I don't know, like what you have, like a sensor, and then you have a trigger, and like and then you.
It's actually like a defibrillator, like the thing that they give like a shock with.
Yes, like from the movies.
Yes, well, I have that internally in me.
Wow.
So it's a little device. Huh?
You are a cyborg.
When I saw like the folder that they gave me, it was really like a cyborg actually that they were showing me, and that's what I am, because I've like really
that's
like
cool.
well, I don't know if but yeah, it's weird to see it every day still, but it's a part of me now.
Yeah.
But it's connected with my heart with wires, and if it would notice something like happening that is not correct, it would give me a shock to reset my heart.
You don't have to do anything.
No, I don't know. No.
Oh, wow.
Because with a cardiac arrest, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
If it happens, then again, you're just unconscious. So it has to do something. It gives me a shock.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty crazy what technology there is. Like, what?
Honestly, I'm kind of terrified if it would ever happen, because I've heard people describe how it is. And it's like a horse kicking you in the chest, apparently. But at the same time, I can sleep at night quite peacefully, knowing that if something might happen, I could handle it.
Yeah,
because of this device.
It's your parachute,
It is my yes.
It like I mean I can imagine you have a mixed relationship to it, but on the other side, I mean, there are probably 100,000 of people out there who would love to have this device.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. I'm more grateful for it than anything else. Actually, I'm more grateful to it than scared of it. You could say. Yeah. But I truly feel like a cyborg. Actually, yeah. And that's a cool side in a way, because I am curious, because now I have it. I'm curious because the battery lasts for like 10 to 15 years. And then I have to replace it. I'm curious in 10 years or 15 years how much smaller it will be, how much different. Just the technology. I'm very curious in that now.
Yeah, it will be very different. Probably they will gonna replace it already before, because...
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I totally forgot where I was actually going with all this. But I would say that I do try to focus actually on the options at hand. Like now the next surgery is coming in a few months, and I just put all my attention on that, and I don't stress about anything else yet, about any what ifs, what if it doesn't work, this, that. I just eliminate those thoughts in a way, and I put all my attention on like, okay, this is where we're going to, and this is what we're doing. And let's focus on that, And that kind of gives me, in a way, hope, you could say. Because as long as there are options, there's things that you can do. And that does feel hopeful in a way, though.
Yeah.
And that's a bit how I deal with it. Oh, yeah, I was saying all this because the cardiac arrest could happen again. Well, anyway, that's my approach at the moment.
Yeah. To focus on this and on the moment, in a way.
Focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Try to keep it simple, like you actually said. Yeah. Keep it simple, focus on one thing.
Yeah. That's always a good idea.
Yeah. It's otherwise too complex. With any problems, right? Big or small, focus on one thing at a time. Before we continue with the interview, I just like to take a moment to mention, if you feel that you've gained some insights and lessons from this interview and you're curious to see what else we offer at the IPS Project, I recommend that you check out the IPS Academy, where we offer online courses taught by guests here on the IPS Podcast. Learn more about essential life topics such as mental health, relationships, the mind, and the body and brain through fun and interactive courses. Simply go to theipsproject.com/academy or check the description of this episode to find the link. Each course has a few lessons to try for free, so you can get a taste of what the course is like. We have countless reviews from other students, so you can see what others think. And there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. if you end up not liking the course. Again, check them out at theipsproject.com/academy or by clicking on the link in the description of this episode. Having said that, let's return back to the interview. Martin, I just have a few last questions left for you. So we talked about, hearing bad news and dealing with that. Often we're actually very good at, when something bad happens, or, just in the day, it's like the negativity bias, right? Like 100 things go right and one thing happens and our whole day has been ruined because of that. We're very good actually at keeping our attention on that and not seeing the good moments that have happened and to recognize them a bit more. And they deserve a lot more attention in the end, right? Than the bad ones sometimes. How do you celebrate? And you already mentioned that you opened a bottle of champagne, but how do you celebrate when you hear good news? And also, is there any tips maybe that you could give to people listening on how to celebrate, or if they're bad at celebrating?
You mean like if they're bad, like how they can better celebrate, or?
Yeah, or if they just forget about it or something, when something good actually happens. And it's maybe more obvious when something really big has happened, like a surgery that was successful. But also people achieve big things or goals which definitely deserve celebration, right?
Yeah. I think in the bigger picture, what I do, I have a predictable situation because I have control scans and then I get results.
Right.
And so the moment of getting good or bad news regarding to health is very clear. It's the day of the results, and I always take the day off. Like no matter what the results are, they are off. And also if they are good, I will not go back to work. I just do whatever I feel like, and that's really good. So I think that you can also apply for other things in at work or in your relationship. Like if there's something happens, like, hey, let's reserve a day or an afternoon and do something special and celebrate that. And I think it's a way of being conscious about allowing ourselves also to say, hey, that was now really good, or I did something good. It's often we are very judgmental with when we mess things up, but we are not so good in giving compliments. I don't know how it's in Belgium, but in Switzerland it's like, don't give yourself compliments, and I think that's not good. Like,
no.
I often say in my workshops, like if you do something well, what you can do, and people watching, they can see it, but like if you're listening, what you can do is like you can put your arm like out in front of you. Try it also with me, like.
All right.
Yes, and then you're gonna bend it like 90 degrees, like this, and then you're gonna clap your. And so I do that a lot, and when I show that to people, the most of them start laughing, and that's what you want, because you want to give your brain a boost of like confirmation of dopamine, of like thumbs up, that was good, more of that, like this is the positive feedback loop that you want to incorporate in your daily life, and I do that a lot. Like when I do something in the house that I was like avoiding for a long time, and then finally, I don't know, clean it up, or I don't know, say, hey, well done, Martin, and like I give myself the compliment, and I think that's a really funny little trick that you can play around with. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because often we wait for other people to compliment ourselves, right? While we already know, like, this was actually quite challenging, and I did it, or I went through this tough time. Don't wait. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Something that I do, and this year I'm doing it again, is so my cardiac arrest happened on the 19th of February, and I'm doing sort of like a rebirth birthday or something, Yes. And I'm throwing last year I did it, and this month or in February we're doing it too. We're doing a costume party here in the apartments, and it's sort of like turning dramatic thing into a very fun thing, because I was so close to never seeing my friends ever again. And it's not like I have to mention this, like, oh, this is why I'm doing this party, but it's just for myself to be again like, this is nice. I almost lost this.
Yes.
And I guess
I love it. I love it. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I guess people can do something in another way, right? It's like when you do something, take a day, like you said, off, go to a spa, order food that you love, do something that you like, because you do deserve it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just taking an afternoon off and not having a plan and just, I don't know, going to the city and see where you end up. And maybe it's in a coffee shop, or I don't know, like I think it's about the conscious decision of allowing yourself to celebrate in one way or the other. That is important. Yeah.
I've seen in 2022 a lot of photos and videos from you on social media on a sailing boat. And you already mentioned sailing. Let's talk about it for just a little bit more. When did you actually get started with sailing?
This was directly after my first chemo in 2013.
Oh, okay. Wow. So like 10 years ago.
Yes. And I was never on a sailboat before, and I was just finished with chemo. I had like, life, let's go. And then a friend, my mom, her husband was a sailor, and she was like, hey, you should go with my husband sailing. I didn't know the guy before. And we clicked on the first trip, and he became my sail mentor first, and we sailed a lot around. And then he had a boat back then in the Mediterranean, and then later we crossed Atlantic together with other people. Like, we were 6, so that was the biggest thing we did then. And then now he bought a boat in Canada some years back, and like during COVID and this time, and I had a tricky time personally, like, okay, what should I do? And I was like, let's get out here, let's become a pirate. I just want to go sailing, like. And so I talked a lot.
Best plan always, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I talked a lot with Felix about, okay, look, I'm thinking about a sailboat, and if he
thinking about becoming a pirate.
Yeah, exactly. How do I become a pirate? And he was like consulting me on like what should I look out if I buy a boat and so on. And then one day he just called me and said, hey, do you want to become partner with my boat? Oh. And I was like, yeah, hell yes. I mean, it was amazing because he has so much experience, and I also in this way could like easier get into a boat ownership, which is not like also financially an easy thing to do, and learn a lot what it means to have a boat. And so the boat was back then in Vancouver, and then we shifted crews like he started, and then I took over, and we sailed the boat from Vancouver all the way to Florida. And then
how many days did that took?
That took like half a year or so. I mean, I was on the boat. No, he was on the boat 3 months or so, and then I was on the boat 5 months.
Wow.
And then he was on the boat again 1 month, and then in Florida we transported it over to Europe. So now it's in Italy. So So it's back home in the Met. Yes, I mean not home. It's a Canadian brand, so it's actually really an expat. Yes.
Yeah. How cool is this actually?
That's one of the best adventures of my life, I have to say. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently, it was not a sailing boat, but I went to, Malta in Europe, but next to it you have Gozo, like a tiny island of Malta. Yeah. And I rented a boat, but like one that you could easily drive yourself without like a license or something, right? Yeah. And holy shit, I had so much fun. It was amazing. Just driving to different beaches, laying out your anchor, swimming, going to another one. It was good.
And when you have a sailboat, it's like you have like it's like a caravan. You have your whole house with you. You have your kitchen, you have your sleeping room, you have like everything. You just drop anchor and say, do you want to sleep here tonight? Okay, let's do it. It's amazing. It's really freedom,
Yeah, this makes me want to try it at some point too. When I see these videos or posts, it always seems to me like you experience a lot of joy, but that you also learned a lot of lessons and gained a lot of insights, and also a lot of memories, right, on those sailing trips. Are there any lessons about life or deep insights that you've learned, like from a recent sailing trip, that you could share?
I mean, many. The last sailing trip really changed me as a person, as a man, as like really. So it's hard to pick one. I think in a nutshell, and just like one of the most profound things that I learned is, if there is something in life that you want to do, then dare to do it. Like dare to write it down on paper, then make your homework. I watched endless videos on YouTube and like learn everything, connect with people, and like me, I found a mentor, and then find a way and just go for it. Don't wait and learn while. I mean, you're never gonna be ready. It's
true.
Never. It's always, you can always prepare more. And at one point, I remember very well in Costa Rica when Felix flew home, and I, for the first time, I mean, I have to add, I never sailed alone before that trip, and I took over the boat in Costa Rica, and then I was sailing it from Costa Rica first with some friends, but then all by myself to Panama, and
all alone.
Wow. I mean, like in Costa Rica, I had friends, and then I went alone from Costa Rica all the way to Panama City. Then I had another friend helping me to sail it to Cuba. But the moment Felix left and I was alone, I was like, all right, so now, and so that's what I mean. At one point, you just have to do it. You have to go, just go and
learn along the way.
Don't make stupid things. Be aware of, do your homework. That's what I mean. But then go, you will learn so much. So that would be a big one.
Yeah, great lesson. That's actually, I would say, my approach to many things in life too.
Yeah, you can approach it for climbing, but also for business, for any, you have to do it. You have to go and try it out. That's,
Yeah, of course, like you said, with a mountain, for example, prepare, right? See where you have to go, see how, don't just do it, but you're never going to be completely ready. That's true as well.
That's the interesting thing, if you would be completely ready, it would not be interesting anymore.
Yeah.
Then pick a mountain that was really huge for you, like say 10 years ago, and that you climbed now 3-4 times. It doesn't have the same appeal anymore. I mean, it's still a beautiful journey, but that's the cool stuff that you're not ready. That's actually cool.
Yeah. I actually climbed, now it's been a while, I hope I can do it soon again, but I actually climbed quite a lot of mountains when I was, some years ago. And my first kind of big mountain was the Mont Blanc in France. And I was terrified. I was like, what am I doing? But then I had an incredible time, and it really was like, I want to do this more. And then I actually set it as the end goal in my head, the Matterhorn in Switzerland.
And it's a tricky one.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, I actually climbed it. And and I never could have believed that when I was climbing first the Mont Blanc and terrified of just that mountain, that I would have ever been able to achieve something like that. But I had to go. I had to prepare. I had to build it up slowly, right? But I just went for it in a way.
Wow, cool. Yes, that sounds really exciting. I've never been into climbing like that crazy stuff, but I can imagine it must be mind-blowing to stand on top of Matterhorn.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I will do this forever, right? My whole life. But I learned a lot in a way from mountains, and definitely just the lesson, I have this heart disease, yes, but that doesn't mean that I should be limited in how I should live life. And mountains kind of showed me like I could do more than what they would say, right? Because of my disease. And that's super empowering in a way.
Yes, it's probably also motivation for you to see like where you can go with that. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Would you recommend everyone to try sailing at some point?
I don't think so. No, I think you have to figure out for yourself, you know. I mean, first of all, humans are not made for sailing, so it's like normal that you get seasick and all this stuff. And if you hate water, don't go sailing. I mean, I for me personally, it's an amazing school of life, because you really have to learn. You learn that you are not in charge for the last decision is nature, and it's the sea.
Yes.
And that's a very humble experience. Like in the mountains, it's the same. Like we live in a society in cities. We have this illusion that we humans always are in charge, and then you have an illness, and then you realize, oh, wait, but why are we not in charge? Why can we not solve it? When you're in the mountains, when you're on the sea, it's all the time like that. You know that you are not in charge here. I mean, you have to be in charge of your boat or your mountain gear, but the rest is not up to you. And that's a very humble experience, I think.
I agree,
I can recommend to anybody to have it once in their life.
Yeah, there's definitely a force bigger than yourself that you only experience there in such moments. Yeah. But it sounds so cool that you have to be, in a way, almost as like, you know, you have to operate the whole boat. You have to be like one with the boat in a way. But that appeals a lot to me, actually, in wanting to try sailing maybe at some point.
You should. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that you'll like it. And you're close to the sea in Belgium now.
Yeah. So. I only fear that I might get very seasick. But also that after a while you get better at, right?
You will. You know, it's also an attitude. Like it's like you are not made for sailing, and there are tricks like looking at the horizon, picking up the steering wheel helps a lot, and I think it has a lot to do with attitude if you get seasick or not.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, I have 2 last questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Who do you look up to, Martin? Like, are there people who have inspired you in life that helped you to deal with this crazy journey that you've gone through and that you are still going through? I'm curious to just know your the people that you look up to, actually.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I looked up to many other people walking the path before me, where I learned, you know, from cancer patients or survivors and learning from them. But then I found I like the word role models. I found role models in many different areas of life. Like you mentioned Viktor Frankl. So he, for me, definitely is somebody that I studied a lot. And I really feel like, okay, wow, this is somebody who went through something and made out something of his life, and you know, I was like, oh, that's very inspiring. I like podcasters, you know. I love to listen to Rich Roll for endurance sport, and he, as with his story as an ex-alcoholic, it's very, very inspiring. I love people who challenge, you know, the status quo, like let it be Oprah, who was like just as a black woman pushing through. So I have a lot of role models that I get inspired and I then study. You know, I study what did they do and what can I learn from them. So that's for me a very powerful way of learning. Yes.
Yeah, and I would also say actually that a lot of people underestimate the power of having role models in your life. Because there's people before you that have gone through this life too, that actually know the answers. You don't have to figure it all out, actually. And they're there for you to access, in a way, through books or podcasts.
Yes.
I would actually like to just add my role models. And I think this is going to sound very corny, but I actually would say that you are one of a really big role model for me.
Oh, that's very, very kind. I feel humble now. Yeah.
So I'm always really grateful to talk to you, but I've thought a lot of you. Well, that's not maybe weird, but just about your lessons, right? While having gone through this the last 2 years, and it's been really helpful to know that there's someone out there like you who has had this crazy roller coaster and is doing all these incredible things still alive. And that's inspiring, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you. I think I can relate, when you see other stories, also hearing your story, it's encouraging for me, like saying, hey, anybody who is going through hardship and somehow finds a way to make something out of it, I think you can take something out. So yeah. Thanks for that too.
Yeah, and I also, another person that I actually interviewed also, I think last month, Alex Lewis, and he's a quadruple amputee. He lost all his limbs because of a bacteria that just was killing him. It also ate his whole lips. It's pretty crazy actually what he went through. But yeah, it's just insane the suffering that people go through, and yet they still can handle it. Yet they can still smile and laugh and live a meaningful life. It's crazy what humans can actually withstand. It's just insane.
That sounds like a very inspiring guy.
Yeah. A last question: is there any books, videos, or podcast episodes that you can recommend just for everyone listening? On the topics that we sort of talked about, the topics of life, and that you have learned a lot from.
One book that just pops up now, spontaneous, is When Things Fall Apart.
Oh, never heard of it.
It's from a monk. Her name is... You have to look it up.
Sure, yeah.
I don't. It's
hold on. I have it actually open here by... Oh, well, Pema Chodron or something?
Yeah, that's why I cannot remember the name.
Yeah, that's a difficult name, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that book I was reading maybe 2 years ago, so I found it very, very inspiring. She also has a crazy story, and she meditated a lot, and so meditation and Buddhism, I think it's a huge source of inspiration for me. So yeah, that's something that I was reading recently or looking.
She was a monk.
Yeah, and I think she still is, or I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there are many, many resources out there that you can go through, and books. A book that I'm reading at the moment is called Personality is Not Permanent by Benjamin Hardy, and he has a very interesting approach, saying that personality test is the most stupid thing or violent thing that you can do to yourself, because you get in this fixed mindset that you are one type or the other, and actually that's not true. That science is showing that we change over time and we change over the situations we're thrown into, and that personality is actually a result of what kind of task life is giving you. Then you're shaping your personality according to that, or from the context of society you live in. And I found that really interesting, because it's about this whole self-development issue, like who I want to be, how can I live that life, and it opens this door of like, hey, it's actually interesting to think about that we can reshape not only our life but our persona, our personality.
Yeah, you're not stuck.
And I experienced that when I lived 5 years in Spain. I became a different person. I became a Spanish version of Martin. And when I came back, my Swiss friends were like, who is this guy? Like I was much louder and
talking Spanish the whole time.
Yes. So that is also a book that I'm enjoying a lot to listen now to. Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, if you're asking about books, I'm happy to make some self-promotion, because I actually wrote the book.
Oh, I totally
Yes.
did not know this actually.
No, because it's not out yet.
Okay.
This is the test print
Dare
that
to
I
Live.
made. Dare to Live. It's a test print I made for my friends and family, and it's gonna be published this spring, probably in March. And so it's very un-Swiss to do this, so I do a bit American, but that's a book you can read if you're interested to learn more about those topics and stuff. So yes,
well, congrats.
Yes, thanks. I'm really like, I'm gonna clap myself. I'm really proud. It was a big, long process.
Wow.
And it's a collection of like small chapters, you know. You have like many small chapters, just like thoughts and mixing neuroscience or my personal approach. And yeah, I think I enjoyed writing it, and now I put it out in the world and see what happens. Yes.
Very exciting.
Yes, it is. I'm really looking forward to it.
How does it feel to hold it actually in your hands?
Hey, it's interesting because the manuscript was in my computer finished for many months. And then I was like proofreading it and then I got a box with the prints.
Yeah.
And it was such a different feeling to have the book in your hand, you know? It's still the same text, but it's in your hand. It's like, and you're like, oh, holy cow, I wrote the book.
That must be so cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's really, yeah.
So Dare to Live, and you said June or
March?
March. Okay, sorry.
March, April, and yes, I gonna self-publish it. So you're gonna find it on Amazon and everywhere where you can buy online the stuff. And
you can or you can't.
No, you can. You can. Like,
okay, good.
Yes, that's the easiest way to distribute it for me at this point. Yes.
Well, very exciting. I am definitely actually interested in ordering it myself. And for everyone listening, I will link up the book in the show notes.
Great. Yes.
Let me just add one book that I actually recently read that had a big impact on me. And maybe you've read it too or heard of it. When Bread Becomes Air. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's from a cancer person affected by cancer, from a doctor, from Stanford or so.
Exactly. He was a neurosurgeon, a very well-respected neurosurgeon who had lung cancer. And it was terminal. Yeah. And yeah, it's hard sometimes to describe what a book does to you, because it was such an emotional roller coaster to read. I actually listened to it, but to just listen to that book. But man, some people, good things happen to bad people, and that's just not fair. But he was also able to just draw meaning out of his work and still try to push forward in life by what he felt was his calling. Yeah. And that was in a way very beautiful, but also very heartbreaking because of the life that he actually had, and that's gone now, but still.
Yeah, and it's beautiful written. I remember reading it, and it made me cry, and it was like really. It's a good recommendation. Yeah, maybe I should pick it up again. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's written by Paul Kalaniti, and it's also, I will also link it up in the show notes. Martin, thank you. For taking your time for doing this interview.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun, like always, chatting with you and also hearing your story and your side. And yes, it's now seems like becomes a regular thing that we turn up here on the podcast, which is kind of fun. Yes.
Yeah, so much happens, right? And each time there's been quite some years actually between it. So it's always interesting to just see the process and the progression and just the lessons, right? Yeah. That you've went or that you learned.
Yes.
I do have one final end question that I've asked you actually in each one of those episodes too. So don't try to think of what you said then.
I don't remember the question, so it's actually good. I remember
great.
that you had this one final question, but I don't remember how it went.
But that's interesting actually, Yes. Because time changes this final end question with many people. Yeah. And again, you can make it very short or you can make it as extended as you want. Sorry. First of all, let me just ask, for people listening, like you mentioned your book, but also what is the best place for people to actually connect with you, check your work, check the Mindset Academy, for example? Where can people best go to?
I think the most active, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Yes.
And of course, you can just Google my name and then you find my website for the newsletter. So I'm sending out a newsletter regularly, just summarizing my thoughts. And yeah, that's how you find me.
All right. So also for everyone listening, you can find that linked up in the show notes. So the final end question, Martin. From everything that you've seen, experienced, lived, and learned in your life, what is the one thing you know to be true?
Life is shorter than you think, and so maybe it pops up because I talked about the book before, but like dare to live, don't go out and do it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. It's not dramatic. Life is short and you're gonna die tomorrow, but it goes quick and then 10 years are over. And so like just go, but like go easy, but go and do it.
Yeah, but it is a really good title for a book, and it's very true what you shared. Yeah.
Now I have to figure out how to translate into German, because people here in Switzerland say like, we need that in German. Like, how do you translate that?
Oh yeah, translating books can be a challenge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for titles. Yeah.
Yeah, the title will be challenging. Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Martin, thank you once again for being here on the show. Yeah. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for me too. Thank you.
And that concludes this episode with Martin and me. I truly hope you found many insights and lessons from this episode. Again, if you want to learn even more from Dr. Inderbitzin, do check out episodes 11 and 26. They are both filled with so many more lessons. Of course, also check out the book Martin wrote, Dare to Live, which you can pre-order online by the time this episode is released. You can find the 2 episodes and his book linked up in the show notes, where, of course, any resource mentioned in this episode can be found as well. Now, if you can't find the show notes there, you can always go directly to the ipsproject.com/podcast and search for Martin. With that, thank you for taking the time to listen to these episodes, and I hope I get to welcome you again soon on another one. This is your host, Jellis Vaes, signing off. Before you take off, if you already feel like you've gained many lessons and insights from this episode and you want to continue your journey of personal growth, be sure to take a look at the IPS Academy, where we offer in-depth, quality and fun online courses from experts that have appeared here on the podcast. Learn from a 2-time world record holder how to master goal setting and confidence. Learn from a certified stress educator how to manage your stress and live a more balanced life. Learn from a therapist how to heal past wounds, and learn from a neuroscientist to master your mindset. These are but some of the course topics you can find at the IPS Academy. Each course we offer is made with fun animations and stunning illustrations. There are also a few lessons to try for free, so you can get a taste of what the course is like. We have countless reviews from other students, so you can see what others think. And last but not least, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee if you end up not liking the course. If any of this sounds interesting to you, you can check out our courses by going to theipsproject.com/academy or by clicking on the link in the description of this episode.